Cool.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. Julian's very faithful to remind us about these. I'm actually coming to you from Jittery Joe's in Watkinsville, Georgia. So I just bought a can of coarse ground coffee for my French press, which I love making in the morning for my wife. And I just recorded an interview with a couple of German guys who run a solar company down in Eatonton, Georgia. So in fact, I told them, I said, would you be offended if I use German, kind of bumper music, for this first part of the show? No, we would love that. So anyway, we talked about the German grid. Dr. Brown, you'd be interested in a lot of their opinions, both, being, older German guys who immigrated here. In fact, one of them said, can you help me get my green card? I said, let me introduce you to the congressman, because Congressman Heisman can help you. We need to get you. He said, I could marry an American woman, but I don't want to just do that for a green card. That's a good idea. So, hi, Allison. Allison, do you want to introduce our guest today?
It would be my pleasure. Thank you so much. So it's so great to see all the familiar names and faces on this call. This has been such an awesome focus group to be a part in. And this summer, I've had the privilege of interning with the City of Savannah's Office of Sustainability. And I just was amazed at how much amazing stuff is happening down on the coast that we so easily overlook up in Atlanta. And so I had this awesome idea, why don't we highlight Savannah and highlight some of the cool things Savannah's doing, because they recently just passed a 100% green, clean energy resolution. Mm-hmm. And Nick was a key part in making that happen as Director of Sustainability for the city. So Nick was my mentor and supervisor this summer for my internship with the city. And, in addition to that, they're doing really cool things with urban tree nurseries there. The smart sea level sensor project is there. And it's really becoming a very interesting environmental hotspot. And I just really wanted to share all the cool things that are happening down there with my friends up here in Atlanta. So with that, Nick Deffley, 6 years as sustainability director of down there, and doesn't toot his own horn enough. So I'm trying to help him do that. So Nick, tell us about what's happening in Savannah.
Yeah, thank you, Allison, and Commissioner. I mean, we've had a lot of contact this week already. So, and thank you to everyone for just being here. And Marilyn, I get your emails all the time, but it's great to see you again as well. So yeah, as Allison mentioned, I got to say, I have to hand it to Allison. She has been an incredible intern over this entire time with the Sea Level Project, and has definitely pointed out how much I need someone to be helping tell the story and do the PR. We're a very small, lean office, so that's one of the rubs that goes along with it, doing the work or telling the story and finding the balance between the two. But I've been in Savannah at the Sustainability Office, started it actually in 2014, so I just hit my 6-year mark, and it has been a slow kind of up and down progress forward, and I would like to, if I can, I assume I'm able to share screen. I was just going to go through the 100%, take about 10 minutes, and give you the background of our approach, and then let it open up. All right, bear with me one second. Julian, I don't know if you're the host or who I need to get access to share.
Julian is the host. He's going to have to click his security button and allow a screen share.
Okay, you should be able to share now.
There we go. All right, you guys can see it? Cool. Okay, so 100% Savannah, was something that actually was very community driven. We have a local chapter of the Climate Reality Project here. We have Harambe House down here, which is a social equity group that's been down here for many years with Dr. Mildred McLean, who is a partner on quite a few things. And it had been discussed for quite a while. I think as we were moving into our most recent council elections, this was something that was brought up as some of the town halls leading up to our last council election. And really the community took the big lift in saying we want to have our council members commit to this. And verbally, at least they did, and then came back after all of them were elected and said, okay, now it's time to move to the next step on this. So in March, our first council meeting that was virtual, excuse me, after COVID, that is when the council decided to pass this resolution. So I have to thank them and applaud them for also just lifting up this issue and the community members as well. So the goal with us and Savannah is by 2035, all electricity they want to have clean and renewable energy sources for, and then by 2050, everything else, all other fuel sources. A little bit of background just on current conditions, because I think that's important. Obviously, we are dealing with COVID right now, and it has had a major impact on city operations, city revenue, and how we kind of function. So while it was great, I think in many ways for this to be passed at the time it was, it's also just one more added layer of challenge. And so we're trying to think about that context and how we move through the planning process, and also how we think about the funding and the resources and the partnerships we will need in order to make this reality. So how do we drive this plan forward when we're facing these challenges? The sustainability office here has always operated in kind of the same way. So from that standpoint, we're not shifting a lot. I think our approach will be relatively similar. We are operating by leveraging a lot of our local, regional, and national partnerships. All sustainability directors across the country, across the Southeast, across the state are all very connected together, always talking to each other, learning from each other. We are always focused on getting funds out there, looking at different ways to think about new innovative partnerships for grant funding. And then our focus always in sustainability, I mean, you all probably know this already, you know, the triple bottom line, the three-legged stool of sustainability, human health and the community, economics and ecology and the natural environment. We add in equity there as well. That's become more timely, certainly in the last months, as it's become more of a frontline page, or excuse me, front page issue, excuse me. But it's also something that, you know, Savannah has had a long history of needing to kind of deal with and respond to more. So it's always something we've been focused on. I won't get into the details of some of the peer organizations really, but just to highlight a few, of course, we look at other cities and our fellow partners within Georgia, but we look outside of that in the Southeast and across the country. This is a handful of some of them we look at, but it goes much further than that. So the questions we came up with as we're thinking about our kind of limited scope of and our current conditions and our limited scope of resources, it's these kinds of questions. How do we leverage our partnerships, relationships to help develop this plan, knowing that we have limited funding, limited resources? How can we help specifically use this plan to encourage economic development that move towards more social equity and inclusiveness? And as all of you know, there's major opportunities in the clean and renewable energy sector to really look at full new economic sectors and real workforce training for folks who are currently unemployed, underemployed, or just, you know, are looking for more economic mobility upwards. We also, again, with the council, we have a very supportive council for this right now. Mayor Van Johnson, his direction to the community members who were raising this up, as well as myself, was, Nick, you need to set up a plan and a plan process for this energy transition that allows anyone to have a voice and a seat at the table if they want. And so that is kind of what you'll see in a few minutes here, how we kind of walk through and are developing our structure right now. So our tagline that we're starting to come up with here is 100% plan developed by 100% of Savannah. Now we get into the nitty gritty of what we've been thinking about and kind of our approach to this. And I have to thank Allison, a little shout out to making sure I put these arrows on this little horizontal chart here. But essentially, I'll walk through this a little bit in more detail. We've got the mayor and council, obviously, on the left, who kind of help set the policy direction, and an advisory group that includes various city operations, critical operations units, and directors. But it also will have mayor's office or council member representation there, and certainly my office. And then we will have representatives from each of what you see on the far right, which are divided into working groups and focus groups. So in the working group section, you know, we've already started to shift from this. So I want to just preface that this is a draft. It's an iteration. We're getting a little closer. I would say what we're doing now in the working group section, these are intended to be standing working groups that will continue on meeting regularly to help develop and feed into the plan. What we have started to do now is social equity. We're going to actually lift out of the working groups as well as policy advocacy. And the focus there and the intent is that they are actually going to be woven in to all of it. So rather than having them be standalone working groups, instead we will have social equity and policy advocacy focused in our climate and environment group, in our community health group, in our economics and energy group. Because the reality is, after we started thinking about it, if we weave those in further, we need the economics group, the energy group, the environment group to be thinking about equity and policy the entire time as we're developing the plan. On the focus group side, these were other groups that were critical that we wanted to make sure we got a hold of and heard from and helped guide the plan, but didn't want to necessarily have them as kind of standing working groups. Just recognizing that that's something that's harder to manage, and getting all these different folks. Savannah's not that big. After a while, you'd start to find some of the same folks on each one of these groups. So we do focus, though, on having a youth function. And I would say that's really probably middle school, high school, up through college graduates. We've got resident-wide, so anyone out in the community who hasn't fit into some other group can provide input. Then a specific call out to marginalized, vulnerable populations and communities, just recognizing that it is harder for individuals in marginalized communities to really get their voice out there and also have access to provide input to the process. Then on the private sector, just dividing very simply into three areas, which is kind of local small business, recognizing that group separately, commercial business, which would include obviously our restaurants, hospitality, hotel, and then larger industry. So each of those would be what we would envision 2 to 4 week intensive public engagement campaigns, listening sessions, surveys, all of that work to help guide and feed the plan. And then of course, all of this going back to the arrows is that there is no real hierarchy necessarily separate from the mayor and council kind of setting the policy agenda. We are starting to work on this together and communicate across and back and forth through these groups. If anyone has questions along the way, please go ahead and do that. I don't have my chat window up right now, but you can pop up.
Nick, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is your 100% goal for the city's purchase of energy or for the Savannah city as a whole?
It is for the Savannah as a whole. It's the community-wide plus operations of our city.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, very beyond ambitious. I'm going to skip that slide. I think I talked to it. I think that these topics are pretty self-evident in terms of what they would be talking about. Obviously, we just want all those focus areas in the planning process. And the same with the focus groups. I would give a shout out though to the youth group, and just what I say the importance of that is simply knowing that these are our future leaders. These are going to be the folks who are sitting in those elected seats later on, and we want to make sure that they are really here now in the decision-making process and helping guide this plan. I have a timeline slide, which honestly, you don't need to read all of the little details here, but essentially where we are now is really starting to focus on, we've done a stakeholder analysis, figuring out the different groups and participants that we might want to reach out to. And we are getting council feedback now, starting to form these working groups, starting to plan out our first community engagement, kind of public engagement focus group events this year. And all of that with the end timeline. In our resolution, we were given 18 months to develop the plan. So that goes to September of 2021, at the point at which we hope to have a plan that has been well vetted. Everyone is familiar with it prior to, but it gets approved by council on or before the end of September of next year. These are a little more detailed. I won't get into too much here, but we are working to get an energy manager position next year in our 2021 budget. We are on a fiscal year, calendar year, fiscal year. And these are just kind of some of the key areas that we're going to be focusing on first. Our next steps are continuing to kind of do budget forecasts, stakeholder analysis and mapping, which I mentioned we're already doing. Establishing these working groups, moving forward with getting some of the energy modeling done. We have some done through, actually, many of you I'm sure know Greenlink Group and Matt Cox, who has been phenomenal, and we've been working with him quite a bit. And we have some guiding documents, which I know many of you I'm sure are already familiar with, that are gonna, I think, help us along the way in our process. And certainly a nice shout out to Georgia Drawdown and the high impact solutions piece that we're certainly going to be carrying with us as we move forward too. So while we're planning, we're not just sitting here planning the whole time, we're trying to do some tangible work. And I'm pretty excited about this as well. So we've got the community leading a Solarize campaign that I'm hoping will kick off here probably in the fall. We are looking at solar energy procurement agreements for city facilities right now. And of course, continuing to look for grant funding, collaborative partnerships. Collaborative partnerships as well would include like higher education institutions, thinking about more applied research in the city that can move towards and promote our planning effort. Another piece that I haven't mentioned yet, but around the social equity piece, has really focused on the higher energy burden households and making sure that we are looking at their homes, thinking about pilot kind of crowdsourcing weatherization programs and energy efficiency programs for many of our residential units that really just need that assistance before we start moving into solar, excuse me, solar energy. And then I am also pretty proud to show that we just got our GFA Solar Plus battery storage technical assistance grant for 2 critical workforce structures. One is one of our pump stations for stormwater, and the other one is our Category 5 critical workforce shelter, which is meant for any hurricanes up to Category 5 that houses a lot of our critical workforce during times of hurricane. So looking forward to finding the results of that out. That will at least provide us with a kind of cost estimate and feasibility analysis of solar PV plus battery storage on those facilities to help obviously offset operational costs and electricity, but give us some power redundancy as well. And that is it. I'm sorry, I was trying to fly through fast. I hope I didn't confuse anyone, but I'd like to open it up to anyone.
Hey, Nick, I want to, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I want to run an idea past you that I talked about last week with Reed Delaney in Savannah.
Yeah.
Some of you may know Reed of Delaney Industries. His trust acquired 1,600 acres thereabouts on the Savannah River next to Elba Island, just towards downtown. He has a sulfuric acid plant there. There's an old fertilizer plant there. The new landfill solar that you can see from East President is there, right? It's across the street from the substation.
Yeah.
There are 2 Parker stations right there. A lot of land back there, all of it brownfill, all of it contaminated. But there was an old European built building back there, office building, that the company had gone bankrupt. It kind of looks like the Rapture, actually. You go through there and there's like pens on the desk, and paper's still there because apparently the company like shut down over the weekend. People weren't let back in the building, and all the stuff is just there, lab experiments, and they never really touched it. Well, he's redone the 2nd floor of that, and they've got some tenants coming in. And I talked to them about the idea of having a facility like, in a tiny way, like the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator. If you've ever been to Lacey, and I'll be featuring the executive director of Lacey, Michael Swords, on my radio show next week, just one segment with him. It is like that Atlanta Tech Village, except everything's sustainable. So it's not just any entrepreneur, but it's renewable energy, it's sustainability, it's water. It has to be in that category. So I kind of challenged Reed. I said, what would you think about taking part of this floor? Thank you, Allison, for posting the LA Clean Tech Incubator website there in the chat. What if you took this part of this floor and you put out a notice that you all were going to host 6 or 8 sustainability nonprofits? It could be for-profit. So it could be Riverkeeper, it could be 100 Miles, it could be Sierra Club, it could be a solar company, but it's in this small category of sustainability. And you all, and Reed said, yeah, I could give them free rent for 6 months and then just charge them a little bit for the next 6 months and try to help them launch. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the spirit of what this does. And so he was very open to doing this. And I thought, how cool would it be, and I know that Coastal Center, Ossabaw Island Foundation is over there, and they've got, a few folks over there, but this would be, this could be an area where there's some synergy, right? And if you go to Atlanta Tech Village, or you go to Lacey out in LA, and I've been there, I've been to the one down in Silicon Valley, up in Silicon Valley. There's a lot of synergy that happens because there are mature companies and then brand new entrepreneurs that are there. And so there's value to just, being next to these people. Nick, how do you think something like that could really boost what you're trying to do down there?
Honestly, I would say that could be a prime component to help really get this into the awareness and consciousness of all the public down here, because that's one of our largest challenges. Just getting people to understand sustainability, understand energy, and have a place where they can actually go experience it, play with it, ask questions, have that kind of living laboratory space, I think would be really excellent.
Well, good. If you don't mind, I'm going to just introduce you to Reed. Do you know him well?
I don't know him well. We've met a few times, but yeah, I was happy to see him do that solar array out on the landfill track.
Yeah, so we're going to, of course, feature that on my Clean Energy Roadshow coming up on August the third one on September the 29th. But I'll introduce you to him and just, remind him of what your position is. And he's got the money to do it. And I think he's got the heart to do it. He's got some pollinator flowers there. He's got those bees there. He wants to do more. And I think that having people on site would help his own personal education, as well as to create kind of this incubator. Let me ask you, James Marlowe. You've been in this business a long time. You've been a mentor to many, many people, including me. How do you see something like that being a benefit to a place like Savannah, where sustainability is already kind of front and center for a lot of people because of the air and water issues there?
Well, first of all, let me say, Nick, I think what you're doing is fantastic. Thank you for everything that you're trying to integrate. I love the Coast and have been talking with Creative Coast recently. I think it's a brilliant idea. The rub is funding. Without funding, I've never seen, I tell people all the time, I've never seen land build a solar project. I've never seen an office build a company or build a nonprofit. It takes, sustained funding and commitment. So I would just caution you on doing that without the funding. And, you know, that's why LA and San Francisco can do it, is people will make, you know, governmental grants available on a multi-year basis, but also, you know, very wealthy entrepreneurs will write checks quickly to do things, and then they'll sustain it. So that would be my warning.
Yeah, I mean,
that's good advice, James. And I want to remind Reed before he launches into this that to make this sustainable is going to require some commitment, including finances. So that's good. Nick, go ahead.
well, I mean, I'm not familiar with the LA incubator, but I've got the site up. There's a workforce component to that, or a training component?
Yeah, they've got a whole wing that's associated with their technical college where you can, you can learn certain skills. And in fact, the LA utility actually owns the building. So to James's point, it's super sustainable because the utility is, it's got the building and it's already paid for that. So, but there is a workforce training thing there. They have a separate, it's an old furniture factory, I believe, and they have a separate kind of Butler building across the street that's the quote laboratory. I went over there, had a Cessna airplane. They had a Cessna airplane inside that they were putting solar film on the wings, and so you've got a place to kind of have your tools and lab stuff, and then you've got your typical what they call the hot seats for entrepreneurs, and hot desk, not hot seats, hot desk, little offices, bigger offices. There's a company called pickmysolar.com that grew out of that. And they're now taking up, 4 or 5 offices because they've chosen to stay there and become a mentor. So the whole idea is, you start out here, and if you're successful, we want you to stick around and want you to help others in a mentor relationship.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Hey, Allison, let me ask you, you worked with Nick this summer and you gave the introduction, but was there anything about sustainability in Savannah that surprised you? Any challenges that you felt, you weren't ready for, or not ready for, but you hadn't thought about that, you're kind of leaving that experience now? And actually, she may have left our call. Allison, are you still here?
She's here.
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry, I just have a window of 6 up here, so I need to make it bigger. Is there anything, that you kind of walk away with going, wow, I didn't think about that. I'm glad I was there. And now I've really got to go back and kind of figure out how to solve this problem.
Well, it brings to mind a lot of things, and I'm not sure how deep we want to go into kind of the culture of sustainability in Savannah, but that was kind of the biggest thing that struck me, is that it is a very different culture of sustainability than it is in Atlanta.
How so? I'd like for you to explain that, because I think it's important for us to talk about it.
Right. So in Atlanta, I was constantly having FOMO over which environmental group to participate in, and which meetings to go to, and how many networks can I be involved in. There is just a lot of activity, a lot of energy around these things, and most prominently, tons and tons of philanthropic support that I see. And so, I was then asking Nick, like, where is your USGBC chapter? Where is your Sierra Club chapter? Like, where are all these things that I kind of assumed would have a counterpart in Savannah? And they just, they have like a minimal presence, a very low presence. And it's kind of a weird paradigm, right? Because you think they're on the coast. Everybody who moves there probably loves the environment and interacts with the environment. And and it's kind of one of those questions of like, well, is everybody just naturally a tree hugger and they don't need to go out of their way to do it? Or is life just so good on the coast that, you know, they don't want to change? Whereas Atlanta.
We lost you, Allison.
Allison, we lost your audio. You're not muted. I'm not sure what happened.
Okay. Camera, is the audio back?
Yes, you're back.
Okay.
Give us those last two sentences again.
So probably as expected, Savannah is a lot slower. And, you know, I guess I thought I was going to come in with all this energy and accomplish a dozen projects, and we kind of barely got halfway into 2. And that was just because we were mostly working with an environmental justice community, and so we had to take it at a much slower pace than anything can happen. But you know, just to talk about that cultural thing, you know, Nick did share that, you know, one of the oldest environmental organizations is this tree group, you know, Savannians, I don't know what you call them.
Savannah Tree Foundation.
They love their trees, right? It's like centuries-year-olds of an organization. But there just doesn't seem to be that kind of groundswell of you know, young people interest as much as I see in Atlanta. And, you know, even as far as like, I was trying to get resources, and I was connecting to, and I hope no one takes this the wrong way, but, you know, I got a lot more even just communication and support from the Atlanta Regional Commission and then the Coastal Regional Commission. And it was just shocking, the disparity in availability of resources and capacity. And it's not terrible, you know, I'm not trying to tell a terrible story here, but you know, I think that's why Nick has just been very quietly churning away, and I see so much potential to even just bridge Atlanta to Savannah, and I'm just going to continue pushing that this year. So I hope that answered that question. I didn't go too far.
Yeah, that's good. Dr. Brown, were you going to say something on the difference between the two areas?
I was going to say, when you started, you were comparing the two, and I was sure that it was the flip, you know, reversal of what you just said. Savannah must be, you know, so committed to its city's elegance and environment and the coast and all its trees. I just figured they'd be knee deep in organizational support and community assistance. So I don't think you've got the strong university support that we do in Atlanta. I know you do have the University of South Georgia and some other, I'm sorry, I'm not. SCAD
really has revolutionized downtown Savannah and taking blighted property or near blighted property and renovating it, putting a bunch of young people, a lot of customers for businesses. I mean, I do think we have a great opportunity with those young people that are there. I know I had a chance to go speak with one of the environmental classes. And as I've said to many state leaders, if young people spend 4 years in our institutions and they don't come out having seen solar, understanding how it works, we've done them a disservice. I mean, you can't spend 4 years in an institution of higher learning and not come away with understanding this. Right, Dr. Brown? I mean, we should be making sure they see it with their eyes and they understand the value.
Yeah. We did used to have a Savannah satellite campus at Georgia Tech, and it just closed down recently.
You do. It's there.
It's there.
Yeah. It's in a beautiful building out there by the airport, by Gulfstream. It's not downtown.
Okay, I thought that had been wrapped up.
No, we had our roadshow there last year. Beautiful.
Okay,
I
good.
think their focus may have shifted a little bit. For a while, they did kind of die down. Then they focused on veterans, I think, and doing training there. But I would say, I mean, so we have SCAD, we have Savannah State, which is an HBCU. We have Savannah Tech, our technical college, and we have now Georgia Southern Armstrong down here. But, you know, I think Dr. Russ Clark was on the call. I don't know. I think he still is. I mean, we do a lot of partnership now with Georgia Tech as well out of Atlanta. And I would say, you know, I'm not from here. I've lived here twice, once in the late 90s and went to Minneapolis and then came back. But one, I was very glad to leave for 12 years so I could come back and see, oh yeah, this place really does change. Because if I hadn't had that perspective, it would have been a little more challenging. And this is probably one of the least civically engaged places I've lived in terms of like in your face kind of, it's different here. People kind of, to Allison's point, we kind of go through our lives. We're focusing mostly on smaller community pieces, but there's not a lot of yelling, screaming, or pushing or driving for certain things that you see in other communities. It just kind of comes out of the woodwork.
I wanted to make one other comment. I was really pleased to get the sense of inclusion and engagement and the equity piece. I wanted to ask you a question at the Drawdown Georgia meeting yesterday at Green Prints. Mm-hmm. And James Marlowe, you may have a reaction to this. We talked about how solarized campaigns might include within them a requirement for a diverse workforce. I wondered, has that happened? Have you thought about that? I mean, that is an issue. It's, you know, not many women and not many minorities. It's, you know, kind of white guys out there. And they need to be trained. It's an impact that cities could have if they were to overlay that. So is that happening anywhere?
I'll make a couple of comments. There have been a number of efforts to get veterans involved, to get more diversity, and it's chicken and egg. I mean, until you have, you know, a consistent growth of new jobs, it's difficult to have training programs. So I've participated with Savannah Technical College, Lanier Technical College, others. They've had some programs off and on. I don't even know what they're doing right now, but you know, there is high interest in that. Installing solar is not for everybody. I mean, not everybody likes to climb on a roof, but you know, there is a total need for more diversity on lots of levels, and I applaud any of those efforts. Right now, there's 4,798 solar workers in Georgia, according to the recent SEIA data. So, you know, 13 years ago, there were 4 or 5 people. So we've seen a lot of growth and a lot of progress. But as many of you will know, that creating that ecosystem is what has to happen. So it's not any one thing that we do, but it's creating a viable economic group, nonprofit groups, training, you know.
Yeah, it's a great role for government, though, to set the pace, you know, put in the procurement some socially beneficial requirements.
I like that idea. And I mean, we're very much at a stage where we can start bringing that in now. So
you could be a trendsetter. You could.
You know, and really, Allison had a chance to see this. I mean, it is South Georgia, right? It's just not Atlanta. It don't forget that it's Georgia's oldest city. And there's a lot of heritage there, Irish heritage, Jewish heritage, African-American heritage. And those are tight-knit communities. And they have a lot of traditional things that they do and that are very important, you know. And so when you think about, one of my masters was in nonprofit organizations, and you think about, you know, running a nonprofit and the importance of having supporters and, you know, benefactors and board members and people that really believe in you. There's a lot of competing entities in Savannah, the Hibernian Society, the whole parade thing, all this surrounding that take up a lot of time that people have. You know, if you're on the parade committee, good grief, you know, you don't have time for much anything else over a year. And there are other organizations that are like that. There's a lot of churches. There's a lot of there's a lot of fun things to do on the weekend, right? Kayaking, going out to Tybee, you know, going, you know, on a hiking trip. I mean, so you've got all these competing things, and it's just, you know, for you to have a organization like the Harambe House, and somebody put that in the chat, you got to have people that'll show up. You got to have people that'll give you money for it to be sustainable, for it to be effective. And a lot of that just goes to Atlanta. Atlanta just sucks all the oxygen out of the state in many things. And we've talked many times in state politics about the two Georgias, right? Atlanta and everywhere else.
And that's an area where part of why I focused on policy advocacy the way I did is that, you know, one, we can at least work with Athens and, you know, Andrew up there, we can work with John R. and Shelby and Atlanta and others, and other cities are coming online, but doing a little bit of aggregate state policy work, I think, is also going to be key, because Savannah's got to start getting more and more on the policy map, I think. So yeah, great idea.
Russ, you're on the call. Did you want to chime in? Your name was invoked. I want to give you a chance to kind of respond to this.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, everybody. I've been lurking, but yeah, I will clarify the Georgia Tech Savannah campus is still very active. I'm here most of the time. The main missions are professional education, continuing education, as Nick mentioned, the vet program, but also we have a K-12 presence here with the Georgia Tech Seismic Organization. And then I'm very much involved in the applied research piece. So probably the two biggest areas are the smart cities sensor work that I do, but then obviously also you can't deny the presence of the port, and supply chain logistics is one of the big activities. And obviously Georgia Tech's research in that area is a big part of that. So. Yep. So we're here, and we're you know, I'm a big, obviously longtime fan and advocate for the Savannah area, and acknowledge and recognize all the challenges that we've talked about here. And you know, it is different from Atlanta. I say thank goodness. You know, it's one of the reasons I'm here. But it does also present, you know, some different challenges and opportunities for doing these kinds of things. But you know, but this initiative that Nick was, you know, presenting about today is huge. And I think one of the things that I go back to in our work and what we've been able to, how we've been able to be successful here in many ways, I think more successful than if we had tried to do a similar program in Atlanta. And it's largely because of the size of the community and the fact that you can walk down the street and meet the people you need to talk to get something done, and find the way through that. And it's just, to me, that, so I think, you know, in many ways a program like what Nick presented today probably has a better shot here, just because of that scope and being so different, and some of the, you know, there's nothing more complex than Atlanta regional, you know, doing anything, you know, at the regional level in Atlanta, and it's very hard to navigate all of that. And I think Savannah is in fact a more fun place to pilot some things, and that's, from a research perspective, that's been really important for us.
I want y'all to think about this. Nick, how many trucks go in and out of the port every day? Is it about 9,000, or is it more than that? You know,
I do not know.
Yeah.
You probably know better.
I have seen it a number of times. Like, it is a big number like that.
Yeah. So I want y'all to think about this, because when you think about moving the needle on things and having it an impact, right? I mean, I was just interviewing, you know, a German solar company here at Watkinsville in this little conference room, you know, about the 10 kilowatt systems that they put on houses, right? And it would take a lot of 10 kilowatt systems to add up to that 2,000 acre solar array in Twiggs County. James, how many megawatts is that thing? 200 megawatts. So,
I mean, there are 100 megawatt projects in Georgia and larger ones being built, but you know, we need both. I'm going to always be the one saying that there's no either or, and that we don't have to take down any trees to put on a roof, having the no line loss and transmitting that energy of 4 to 6%. There are many benefits to doing both.
yeah, that's right. My point on Savannah is if you've got 9,000 diesel trucks coming in and out of there, it's affecting your air quality for sure. I mean, we've already seen the impact of moving all those ship-to-shore cranes from diesel to electric. All the rubber-tired gantry cranes that were sitting there running all the time, you know, with no governor on that thing, now electric. That's substantial. The switch in lighting to all LED lights. So I think the next frontier for that port is a cleaner transportation. So I was down at the new in-market station at 95 and 21, which is the first CNG station that's been operating in Savannah in a very long time. So it's operating now. And we're going to be doing our roadshow from there August the 20th. But an even bigger CNG station is being built that's going to provide renewable natural gas. So this is going to be gas that has come out of an anaerobic digester and trucked you know, to the facility. So I think over the next 10 years, as we see more trucking companies, I mean, you got drayage trucks that take it from the port up to some distribution center in my town of Brazelton or McDonough or anywhere along the interstate. You've got those little yard tractors that scoot around like a beehive there. They're running on diesel. And then of course you've got, you know, the regular trucks going up and down 95 that are, you know, over the road trucks. I mean, that represents a lot of pollution. And Dr. Brown, I'm going to ask you to chime in here because I know that I've been trying to help you get a hold of the right numbers and the right stuff on your research. And I think you finally have figured all that out. But, you know,
Yeah,
what do you think? What do you think about the impact of port trucking transportation in and around Savannah and the impact that it could make?
Oh, that's a big question. What a great opportunity there is. Here, the footprint of Savannah can be measured in different ways. You can assume that you're responsible for all that freight and try to address it. But in reality, the people who are responsible are those that are receiving the goods. And so there are different ways of measuring of the footprint of Savannah. If they want to go 100% renewable, it could be without accounting for the pass-through of emissions that they have less control over. So there's that whole issue. I'm sure, Nick, that you're thinking along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
But you have the local emissions. It's local pollution in this case. It's not just the CO2 now. It's a lot of health-related costs. So, you know, either electrification or some other forms of cleaner liquid fuels. They're really and of course, there's also the ability to switch your modes of transportation. So going you know, to rail as quickly as possible. I know that's all being developed in the state of Georgia as we speak with these hubs, but you still have that local, the first mile, last mile issue with the port. So, and I know that the ISYE, Industrial Systems Engineering, you know, all of that, those engineers, they are all over these issues. And mine's a simple interpretation of some of the big problems, but it is a really big, big topic. Yep.
Russ, let me ask you to chime in on this. I know I know when we did our event there at your facility, Rich Simmons, Dr. Simmons spoke, and he has the experience with the automobile companies and just a great asset at Georgia Tech. Your thoughts, because you guys are right in the middle of the truck traffic there. You still there, Russ?
Yeah. And it's grown dramatically since the highway extension to the port, and as that connection, the next leg of that road that's going to connect all the way to 16 and make that full loop. I think that, you know, that location is predominantly transit traffic now, right? The trucking and just the growth in the number of warehouses and you know, logistics facilities has been amazing just in the last 10 years and continues to. So all of this, you know, we can't wait for the new the new rail expansion to open at the port, and hopefully take some of the, you know, bring a better alternative for some of the that, especially the trucks that are headed up I-16. But yeah, it's a huge impact and continues to grow.
Yeah, let me, who's going to chime in?
For economic development of Savannah. I mean, it's got to be tackled for many different reasons, but it's very much like the Aeropolis in Atlanta. The city's trying its best, but you know, a lot of influences beyond their control. And you can't, of course, influence the nature of the fuels that are used in the planes coming in and out. Not your planes anyway. It's very analogous. We've taken a look at that in Atlanta, and it's much like the Savannah port situation.
Yeah, let's wrap up our call today with a couple of reports from folks on the line. So I see Becky's joined us. Hello, Becky. How you doing out there? You got any reports for us on your co-op? Any exciting things? I know you sent me that Pays article today, and that's going to be exciting to see that kick in, where folks can get energy efficiency equipment put on their house at no cost to them. So you want to say a word today?
Sure. Actually, I don't have any updates about my co-housing community, but there have been some inquiries, people interested in getting more solar on the roofs. We have a lot of solar here already. So I'm excited about that. And one thing that's been really interesting the past month, I've been interviewing residents, low to moderate income residents in the city of Albany, about housing, energy efficiency, energy savings, and technology as part of the Albany Smart Cities Initiative. And it's just been fascinating to talk to people about their energy bill, their electricity bills, how they feel about the environment, sustainability. And I've spoken with 35 people at this point. I just did another round of interviews this past week. And yeah, I'm excited. I'll definitely share the results with you all. We're in the middle of writing the paper now. It might be even a couple more months, just given all the data that we've been getting. So, but everybody that I've talked with is trying to do as much as they can with energy efficiency and energy conservation in their homes to be able to lower their electricity bills, especially through housing. So what we found is this sort of like importance of the connection between housing assistance programs and energy savings. And of course, the housing assistance programs are facing even further funding cuts. They've been kind of going down since about 2001. But the HUD funding is just finding how important it is and how it's connected.
Yeah, there's a good chance if you live in an old house in a dumpy part of town with a landlord, that you probably don't have the most efficient HVAC system on the planet. And that thing's probably running too much, it's probably low on Freon, and you're probably wasting a lot of money. So that's a great connection to be made. Crystal, any update? I know things aren't moving along very much at Georgia Gwinnett with campus and school and everything because of COVID, but any news on your car sharing project?
Not yet. We start back next week, and the sustainability committee is expected to reconvene then. They've been off since they let out back in the spring. And so I'm expecting something to start moving forward after that, because I'm supposed to be, from what the chair had said, we were kind of waiting on everybody to come back together because they had already dispersed, and we're supposed to talk about it when they come back together. So next week, hopefully, the ball gets rolling on a lot of that.
Great. Keep us posted. Hamilton, any report from you?
I personally don't have a whole lot.
I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me at all?
Yes.
I don't have anything new to share on my end. I just wanted to just share, my enthusiasm, support for what Nick's doing in Savannah. I thought a lot. Yesterday, I was helping out with the Green Prince conference, and a lot of the issues that we talked about there kind of came up here. So it's really interesting to kind of see what you're doing, and I wish you all the success.
Great. Jamie Barber, can you give us an update on net metering? I know that it still hasn't appeared on people's bill, but it will be retroactive to January 1, and I'm assuming folks are going to get a big credit on their bill in November or December, right?
That's correct. Well, actually, if you're not on the time of use, the company, it's going to be implemented in August. So it's already, I think what Georgia Power told me, you're actually going to get two different, they did send out some emails, and now they found out there's a third group of customers, which are mainly commercial. But yes, you will get the credits. And so customers, if you're not on time of use, should start seeing it this month. If you're on time of use, it should be in October, November timeframe. So that's where we're at on that. And just an update on energy efficiency. Some of Georgia Power's programs are currently paused, as we know, but they are working with the programs that are not self-implemented, like the PAYS program is not going to be self-implemented. They are working with their contractors to start getting back into homes, as long as they can make it where there's not direct contact with the customer. So that's really good news. And so we just had this conversation this week and should know more soon.
Great. And I guess to wrap it up, Julian, any report on any of your project? I know you served on that decommissioning paper writing at the commission. Anything you're working on we should know about?
Actually, last month we had brought up the topic of high performance homes on a budget. And since then, Sol and I have been meeting pretty much weekly to brainstorm on ideas, because he is planning an addition to his home, and my girlfriend and I are planning a new build from the ground up home. So Sol and I have been brainstorming on a lot of ideas. He's got an enormous amount of experience now with 10 years partially solar powered, and he's shared a lot of good information. For example, induction cooktops are a great way to go. And in the interest of saving money and getting the most home we can for the money, we've made decisions like, why put in a full-size range? Maybe we cook a turkey once a year. When do you ever use 4 cooktops? We can save a whole bunch of room in the kitchen and get 2 induction cooktops and be fine.
Yeah.
My girlfriend and I have also debated, do we want propane or not? And my first reaction was, well, I like having energy stored on site. But after thinking about it some more, it's like, no, I don't want any combustion fuels in our building envelope.
Yeah.
No, a tankless hot water heater, propane fuel, does not make sense compared to a hybrid heat pump electric water heater. We're also planning a 24-volt electrical system with minimal amount of indoor lighting and all of our outdoor lighting on 24-volt backup with a small amount of solar power. Wow. That 24-volt system can also power an uninterruptible power supply for our refrigerator. So grid goes out, no problem. Fridge is on, lights are on. And you can meet some other very basic needs with that 24-volt system. Just real quick on a more personal side, I've mentioned before that my office I'm sitting in is actually in a large 2-bedroom camper with a 12-volt electrical system. And I've got now 14 kilowatt hours of surplus batteries that I'm getting ready to integrate into the house electrical system. And probably about a month from now, we're gonna visit Seoul to see some of the things he's done in his house. And we're negotiating on 10 brand new unused Soneva solar panels that he has stored in his garage. So in the interest of doing things with reclaimed and salvage material, I'm making plans to turn this camper into actually an energy supply source and backup for our home. So that's kind
impressive.
of impressive.
That's it. And it's only appropriate that dock behind you there, that you have a sailboat, right? I don't want to see no motor, okay? I want to see a sailboat. Allison, last word from you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Echols. I just wanted to call attention to a small detail in Nick's presentation. He said they are looking forward to hiring a city energy manager. And I just wanted to echo that I have been interviewing a lot of city sustainability managers, and a lot of these smaller cities are struggling to fund that position. And this is kind of the difference between environmental justice and climate justice that we've just been talking about this week in my small group, that, you know, it's fun to think about how can we electrify the port for climate justice, but cities like Savannah and Sarasota, Florida, they are still struggling to keep up with this environmental justice of just being able to benchmark their energy on city buildings. And it was shocking to me to learn that, you know, something like the Better Buildings Challenge is so simple in Atlanta. A lot of cities cannot even attempt that because they are not even benchmarking their buildings in Energy Star. And so to anyone out there who's friends with philanthropists or has any kind of pull in helping create more of these positions, there's a high demand. And for all of us students, that's going to be an ideal job for us. So just wanted to put that in there again and say thank you so much, everyone, for this platform. Commissioner Echols, it's amazing that you keep this going and keep these conversations going. So thanks so much.
Well, y'all, this has been fantastic. Special thanks to Nick for being on the call today, James, Dr. Brown, our experts, and then all of you out there, our future leaders. Thank you for being here and brainstorming all of this. It's been fantastic. I hope you'll tune in August the 20th to the Clean Energy Roadshow at 1 o'clock, because we're going to be talking about, will it work? Can it work? And we'll have all kind of scenarios. I think you'll be so excited. It won't be a Zoom like this. We'll have people outside with their headphones on. It'll be a show and tell as you've never seen before. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks,
everybody. Great call.
Yeah, great presentation.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.